Every single time Mushoku Tensei shows up anywhere online, someone usually says, yeah, this is one of the best isekais ever made. And I've seen that exact sentence so many times at this point that I was like, okay, let's actually debate this. So that's kind of what today is. I went and read through basically everything I could find, trying to figure out if this title is actually earned or if they're just biased. Okay, so the strongest argument I found by far comes from this Reddit post. The whole idea is that most isekais don't really have a reason to become an isekai. An example would be Shield Hero. If you swap the whole summon to another world thing for, let's say he was kicked out of his village and hated by everyone, you lose basically nothing. And the same post has a bunch of other examples doing the exact same thing. The whole thread's basically frustrated with isekai getting used as a shortcut to skip a lot of world building. Which makes sense, a lot of isekais just use it to make it easier for the show and it kinda saturated the genre a lot. However, Mushoku Tensei is different because it being an isekai is the actual theme, at least according to like half the thread. They say that Mushoku Tensei is about a grown man who completely wasted his first life and the whole point of the story is him getting a second chance to not do that again, concluding that you can't remove the part that he died and got sent to another world without removing the entire point of the show. There's even a tweet where somebody straight up called it the godfather of isekai, saying you kids don't know shit about what a really good story is. And funny enough, one of you dropped that exact same energy in my comments earlier, so I guess we got some monks who enjoyed MT as much as we did. The same thread also goes even further, talking about Ascendance of a Bookworm, saying it's maybe the only other light novel that is as good as Mushoku Tensei. However, if we go up on this exact post, there's actually a quote from the bookworm author herself. She said the isekai part was basically a practical solution to a writing problem, not the actual point of the story, which if anything makes the Mushoku Tensei comparison hit harder, cause even one of the best regarded authors in the space admits her isekai element was just a solution. Now if you don't care about the theory of it and just want numbers, there's actually a poll on the MT subreddit asking if Mushoku Tensei is a near perfect example of what an isekai should be, and almost with 1,000 votes, 913 said yes while only 72 said no, so there's a clear answer here. One reply lays out a whole 5-point checklist for what Mushoku Tensei does that most isekai don't. He says that he loves the reincarnation, the magic system, even the harem, and the fact that we have an internal dialogue with Rudeus and that Rudeus is not a chosen OP character. And not gonna lie, some of these points are really strong, but let's look at something different. Another reply on the same thread goes in a totally different direction and breaks down isekai into 4 different categories: reincarnation, summoning, transportation, and this weird 4th one where you get dropped into an already existing story like those villainless animes. Basically arguing that isekai isn't even one thing, which makes the best isekai a messy question to begin with. Then there's the actual site data. For a good while, Mushoku Tensei was sitting at the highest rated isekai on my anime list, and it had more total ratings than basically anything else on that specific list. Which matters because it's way easier to keep a high score with a small fanbase than it is with thousands of people rating you. Okay, but let's go back and ask, why do people even think this is one of the best isekai ever? And it always comes back to one word, which is the world building. Well, that's actually 2 words, but you get the idea. One post breaks down season 1 specifically, saying not many anime can go that big in a single season. And I completely agree, we see different regions, cultures, and magic traditions all stacked on top of each other in the first season. And even the small stuff gets mentioned, like one person brings up how methodical Rudy is as a problem solver, saying Rudy as being overpowered is because he actually worked at it, not just power for the sake of power. Okay, so at this point I'm thinking that world building is clearly Mushoku Tensei's strongest feature, but turns out not everyone agrees with that. If we go back to our first thread, there's a reply that straight up says no series does world building as good as Bookworm. I haven't seen or read this yet, so I might have to fact check this myself, but honestly this is nothing compared to what's coming, because the real comparison here is ReZero. There's a direct reply that calls the Mushoku Tensei world a lot more generic in comparison to ReZero's. One person goes further, arguing that ReZero's whole 400 years ago dynamic makes for a more unique setting, while MT is closer to a standard adventure show. So even the thing everyone points to as Mushoku Tensei's biggest strength has actual pushback. It's not Mushoku Tensei has the best world building period, it's Mushoku Tensei does something with its world building that a lot of other shows don't even attempt, which honestly might be the more accurate claim anyway. Anyways, one thing I personally enjoyed the most was this anime's opening. I can easily listen to the first openings and just be back in that season, which was the same thing with Attack on Titan, where the music alone just does half the work before the episode even starts. And apparently I'm not the only one who feels that. There's a whole Reddit asking if the season 1 opening feels weirdly nostalgic, and the replies are basically all agreeing. One reply says the Milla's opening makes them feel so safe they could almost start crying, calling it some of the finest liturgical music they've ever heard. Another reply describes it as hitting a sense of Fenweg, which I have no clue what that means, so let's find out. Okay, so it's a German noun that means having the urge to travel and explore distant places, which honestly I agree with. But now let's look at the recent debate, which is whether ReZero is currently the best isekai instead. ReZero Season 3 won Isekai of the Year at the Crunchyroll Awards, and some websites rank it as the highest rated isekai. So somewhere in the last couple of years, the crown might have actually changed animes. And it's not just ReZero either, 2026 is an absolute stacked year for isekai. Slime just got its 4th season plus an actual movie. Lord of Mysteries is also picking up steam as this new Chinese Chinese isekai everyone's talking about. And Tanya the Evil is also back. So Mushoku Tensei Season 3 isn't just being judged on its own right now, it's dropping directly into one of the most competitive isekai years ever. Which honestly raises the stakes on whether this new season can actually hold on to the best isekai talk, or if it's just gonna get buried under everything else at the same time. Also worth mentioning, Season 3 is adapting what a lot of fans call the best arc in the entire story, which is Turning Point 4, so if Mushoku Tensei was ever gonna reclaim the crown, the timing is kinda perfect for it. However, let's look at the real drama between Mushoku Tensei and ReZero. A bunch of people describe Mushoku Tensei as being implicit, meaning it shows you something through Rudeus' experience and trusts you to sit with it, versus ReZero being more explicit, where characters will straight up say the lesson out loud. And I completely agree, I always felt like Mushoku Tensei was for a way more mature audience compared to ReZero. But the biggest difference is that ReZero has no harem, well, technically. In this discussion covering why ReZero is better than most isekai, people kept mentioning this. I mean, Subaru is pretty much locked onto Emilia the whole time, and one thread gets into an argument on whether that's even fully true, since apparently a few other girls do have feelings for him in the light novels, but it never actually turns into the typical isekai. And if we look at basically any comments on TikTok about this whole debate, it's pretty easy to see how Mushoku Tensei is viewed. Like for example, there's a lot of hate saying that Subaru is not a PDF compared to Rudeus. Another comment goes way further, saying Rudeus gets rewarded for bad behavior, calling Mushoku Tensei wish fulfillment from start to finish. And there's this one line that got repeated a couple times that I think sums it up perfectly, saying Mushoku Tensei is the best of the genre, while ReZero is a masterpiece that happened to be an isekai. Okay, so why do people disagree with Mushoku Tensei being the best isekai? And it's honestly mainly because of Rudeus. I already went deep into this in my last video, so I'm not gonna redo that whole thing here, but here's a short version for this video. Even though Mushoku Tensei has the world building, the side characters, and the numbers, none of it matters once Rudeus is in the picture. For a lot of people, Rudeus ruined everything the show did right. I found this one tweet that straight up calls Rudeus a groomer, but still rated the show a 7 out of 10. And it's not just one person saying this either. This next tweet is somebody saying they can't fully enjoy the show because of the gross energy, specifically pointing at the harem. It's also not Twitter just being Twitter. I went and found a really long answer on Quora, all landing on the exact same thing, which is good world building, good animation, but a bad main character. One of those answers goes as far as saying that once you know what his backstory actually involved, that alone should keep you from the anime itself. Then there's another reply that calls it whatever this is, saying the show is simultaneously good and bad at the same time. And that's kind of the whole video right there. Every single argument I brought up today eventually went back to that. Everyone agrees that Mushoku Tensei has a great world and characters, and then complain about Rudeus ruining the anime for them. So is Mushoku Tensei actually one of the best isekai ever made? Honestly, I can't say, because one, I haven't seen them all, and two, I might have different tastes than some of you. But honestly, it just comes down to one thing, how you personally feel about Rudeus. And for a lot of you, he probably ruined the show for you. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Bye!